Browncoat here for Koru-Cottage, and I'm just going to come out and say it. I love Monolith Studios. Those guys are awesome. They made Fear, they made Condemned, they made Condemned 2, as well as some other games. But then I also love Warner Brothers, because they gave us the Arkham series through Rocksteady. And then what do you do when you get a cool publisher and a cool developer and they share some ideas? You get awesome game series like Middle-earth, Shadow of Mordor, and Shadow of War. Now, Shadow of Mordor, when that dropped in 2014, we at Koru-Cottage had some pretty kind words to say about it. For me personally, it was my game of the year 2014, hands down. Now, Shadow of War has dropped, and pretty good reviews from the general press, not so flash from gamers in the community, and that is because of its loot box systems. And the loot box systems are deeply embedded in the game systems, which is a bit of an issue. Now, this game dropped about 3 months ago, and Warner Brothers were kind enough to send us a code. But because of the mixed feelings in the community about this game, I've held off, because modern games being what they are, patches make a big difference. So I thought, maybe Monolith will go to Warner Brothers, have a discussion, and then the game will be worth revisiting.
Release you from the spell.
But no, unfortunately. I'd love to say there's been some sweeping changes over the 8 patches that have dropped in the last 3 months, but there haven't. It's UI fixes, bug fixes, some minor nibbling around the edges. No great change to that intrinsic link of grind versus loot box in the mid to end game. But I don't want to harp on about it. I will revisit it towards the end because I've got some general thoughts about game design and loot boxes being built into the core mechanics. All I want to focus on at this point is just the moment-to-moment gameplay. And the moment-to-moment gameplay is still brilliant. It was fantastic in 2014 in the Shadow of Mordor, and it is still brilliant now. It is slick, it is fast, it is just so easy to use, and you feel like, just like Richard said in our original review of Shadow of Mordor, you feel like Aragorn, you feel like a beast. You can just melt orcs across your blade and they don't stand a chance. It's fantastic. Just like Shadow of Mordor, Shadow of War is not going to set the gaming world on fire for its story. It's just not. It's perfectly serviceable. There's some good characters. Troy Baker is a rock solid voice actor, there's no doubt about that. But the overall story arc is pretty straightforward. You've got a ring, you've got Celebrimbor stuck inside you, he's got motives, you're not entirely sure about them, but the overall arc is to try and gain control of Middle-earth from Sauron, using orcs as your followers to build the army.
Talion. We need to build our army.
So, Celebrimbor wants to overthrow Sauron. He needs you to recruit the orcs, and then the big part of the rest of the game following Act 1 is raiding forts, figuring out who the war chiefs are, who the captains are, what their weaknesses are, getting orcs from the world who then belong to your army, and then at the end of sort of each set piece within each sub area within Middle-earth, you raid the fort. You've got orc followers who are loyal to you. They may be in secret, they could be sent to betray the other captains when you go to raid, and when you raid the fort, all of a sudden you can turn the battle in your favour. That is fun, like pure fun. I just loved every minute of that, watching these orcs turn on their leadership. Now you've got to look after them because they are a valuable commodity, and that's what Monolith and Warner Brothers have done.
Don't understand. All their bluster is meaningless.
So no change from the previous game. The orcs are still the star of the show. They are funny, they are scary, and they are imperative to your success in the game. You've got to grind for them because you need them to beat the forts. They are the commodity of the game. They themselves are valuable, especially ones with good perks or good abilities, but then also, if you kill the high level orcs, they drop powerful gear. Those gear can form sets, so if you've got a full set, sword, dagger, bow, cloak, armor, the whole bit, that are all part of a matching set, then you get big perks as a result. There's also gemstones and things that drop that you can infuse into gear, like real RPG systems in play. But the problem is getting all these orcs to raid all these forts is a grind, and it's been designed as a grind because each area has essentially got a different cosmetic feel, but is a cookie cutter exercise. You've got to complete quests and things until you can get to the point where you raid the fort, and then you do it over and over again. But luckily, Warner Brothers have thought to perhaps provide a marketplace where you can go and spend real money to buy loot boxes with orcs inside. Now, there's nothing to tell you what sort of orcs are inside. Suffice to say, it just says what sort of level they'll be, and you might get some other bonuses like training regimes, which will level them up a wee bit further, XP boosts, because your orcs levels are limited by the level of Talion. So everything is focused around that XP grind of you and your orcs.
That is the forest of Kanan, and not our concern.
So, don't get me wrong, the game is still slick, it is still beautifully made, it is massive, it is full of all sorts. And the orcs, they kick ass.
Actually, I don't know a single word. Language is a pain in the ass, but to hazard a guess, he said you're all gonna die horribly. Yeah, my kind of bloke.
Now, to me, the game itself is massive, but it's bloaty. It's had a AAA development budget thrown at it, with lots of what can be put down to meaningless tasks put out there to fulfill the world up, where the core combat is still slick and beautiful. It's the ultimate power fantasy fulfilled, but it's not a huge change from Shadow of Mordor, the 2014 title, and to my mind, it's the better game. Look, raiding the forts is brilliant, the orcs are brilliant, the built-in grind, not so much, but maybe you just look past that. Either way, I hope you've enjoyed the review. Please check out Koru-Cottage.com.